right, so everything from here on is going to be recorded. At the end of the day, or sometimes before the end of the day, I would upload the video onto YouTube, and I'll show you guys how to get to my YouTube channel so you can actually watch not only recordings from this semester, but also recordings from past semesters, okay? Which may or may not be useful. All right, so this is the main site. I'm going to switch the browser again to the, oh, not this one. This is the right one. This is from a student perspective. This should be what you should be seeing right now. Your screen resolution will be different, so it's going to be off a little bit, but for the most part, this should be what you're seeing. Are there any questions about this? So are you guys following this just fine? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so there are several forums, okay, because this class is a hybrid class, so I will be using the forums to communicate with you when we are not meeting in class. The first one is the news forum. The news forum is a kind of read-only forum from your perspective. In other words, I'm the only person who can post with this particular forum, but whatever I post, you will automatically get an email at your apps.lostreals.edu account. If you set up that account to forward to your other accounts, you will be also getting those emails, from your other accounts. So let me go back here. If you do have any questions that you want to ask me, there are many ways to do that. I'll cover that when we get to the syllabus. But the general forum is one place, it's kind of like a catch-all forum. If you have any questions that really does not fall into any particular category, of any forum that has a specific category, you can just use the general forum. So I'm going to get into this interactive teacher-learner agreement thing because it is supposed to be called a syllabus. Does anyone know the meaning of the word syllabus? What does it mean? Overview, kind of like it's an overview. It's not supposed to be like really detailed. Okay, so let's go ahead. I would like to do this because I have. So if you type syllabus, okay, and outline, okay, an outline of the subjects in a course of study or teaching. And the word outline means it's not going to be very detailed. Should not be very long and stuff like that. So do you think my syllabus fits this requirement? No. And it is not my choice either. I was told to make it as detailed as possible. So we'll take a look at the interactive teacher-learner agreement. It's not a quiz, even though it has the quiz icon. It is not exactly a quiz, which means its grade does not count to your final grade. Okay? However, if you get a score of anything less than 100, the rest of the website won't open up to you. So you do need to participate in this quote-unquote quiz and get a perfect score in order to get access to all the other material for this class. It's not hard, okay? I promise you it's easy, okay? It's easy to score 100% with this one. So I'm just going to go ahead myself to attempt the quiz. Okay, I'm going to go through at least a part of it. You guys can finish the rest. Let me just kind of change the zoom here. Okay, so it's broken up into quote-unquote questions. Each section is quote-unquote a question. The first one is really just restating, this is a syllabus of which class, and it really should not be surprising to you. I just copied and pasted this from the schedule. Are there any questions about this part? Well, the answers, you have to scroll all the way down.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll get to it. This part is kind of important. We'll kind of keep an eye on this one as we go through the semester. This is what we call the SLO, or the Student Learning Objective, or Student Learning Outcome, depending on how you want to interpret the O. That's basically saying, what you should be able to do after the completion of this class. I'm not going to get into the details of this list here because some of those items doesn't make any sense until we get to it. At the end of each question, it will give you have to select one of the two choices. The first one is, this is the correct class and the correct section. I intend to stay in this class. Or B, this is not the class that I want to be in. Please drop me if I'm already on the roster. So, I think it's a pretty obvious, choice, to most of you. Are there any questions about this part? No? Okay. The second question is about me, when I'm available. I have to change this because my office hour actually has changed. It talks about my first name, last name, my email address, and you might notice that my email address is not ending with arc.losrios.edu. That's intentional because I like to use a new Google account for every semester. So this way it's easy for me to keep track of communication from students during a particular semester. My office, yeah, go ahead.
That one says spring. Is there a new one for fall?
Yeah, it should be fall. I forgot to change it. The office hour has changed as well. It is right before this class. So from noon to 1 o'clock is my office hour on Mondays and Wednesdays. For Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Friday, it is still 8 to 9 a.m. Are there any questions about that part? I'm going to change it to make sure that it is updated.
It's still office number 7?
I'm still in office number 7, yes. So once again, you have to select one of the two choices. I know how to contact the instructor of the class, or I still don't know how to contact my instructor. Okay. So I'm assuming most of you kind of know which one to click. Presentation delivery methods. Class content will be delivered by video clips, reading material, and interactive activities. So there are a few channels for me to distribute the content here. Video clips include closed captioning, and they're distributed through YouTube. The closed captioning sometimes can be automatic. In other words, sometimes I just use the YouTube automated closed captioning engine to put in the closed captioning. So I'm going to click here. Nothing really too complicated here. This is a new requirement that I have to put into the syllabus. It's called Regular Effective Contact and Communication Policy. It basically talks about how we will be communicating through this semester. The first option is quite simple. Okay, office hours, face-to-face contact. I have 1 hour per day from Monday through Friday. For a lot of questions, this is really the best way to do it, because I can actually get to answer questions right away. It's very direct. But if you cannot make it to my office hour, we can still meet during lab time. This is supposed to be lab time, but I'm going to use it mostly for lecture and occasionally use it as lab time. When I'm in my office, you can also contact me during that time. In other words, I'll be sitting there in front of my computer, and I'll be using, let's see, there's a particular name, instant messaging on Moodle, so that we can actually communicate in real time during that time when I'm in office. Forums would be another way to do it. It's not interactive, and sometimes, it might take me up to a day or so to respond to you. So if you're communicating through forums, you might need to wait a little bit. Moodle also supports messaging. It's not exactly real time, but it's pretty close to real time. So we can kind of chat, using the Moodle messaging thing. Email and phone, because communication by email or phone cannot be logged and be shown to accreditation organizations. That's why, in a hybrid class or a fully online class, I would much rather not to use these two particular modes of communication. So you can use all of the other ones, okay? Well, I guess, in office visits cannot be logged as well unless I videotape everything. But most people would use, the other means to do it. Time frame policy. All participants in a class, that includes me, are expected to check messages and reply as appropriate periodically. I will do so in my office hours as well as once during the weekend. Students are expected to check messages on a daily basis from Monday to Friday and once over the weekend. In other words, we all play by the same rules. This means from Monday to Friday, you can expect a turnaround time of no more than 24 hours because I do check every day, and the turnaround time is 48 hours over the weekend. But that's only for non-real-time communication. If you walk into my office and ask a question, I'm not going to say, I will answer that question tomorrow. Come back tomorrow and I'll have the answer. Now, occasionally, if your question is really difficult and I really don't have an answer right away, I might give you that answer and say, I'll look it up and I'll answer that tomorrow. But for most things, I'll just answer right away. And then there's the etiquette policy. I'm not that much into etiquette, that sort of thing. But as a college, there are policies that apply to everybody, and that includes me as well. Any content that can lead to the interpretation of harassment or discrimination would not be allowed. The following is an example of subcategories, like racial slurs, sexually suggestive words, personal attack, and stuff like that. So we definitely don't want any of those, in our communication. Forums, email, any form of communication. Cyberbullying is bullying, and that is not going to be tolerated. Spamming is a form of DOS, or denial of service, and is not tolerated. Content that can be interpreted as offensive is not tolerated. So cursing, name calling, that sort of thing. Are there any questions about what is considered rude or not acceptable in these communications? No questions?
Spamming in what medium? I'm just curious, how did that wind up there?
Which one?
Spamming. I'm curious, has that been an issue in the past, or?
It can be, watching my own kids, play video games, spamming is basically, sometimes people can spam if they just kind of repeat the message over and over again. Okay,
are you talking on the forum threads and stuff like that, or? Yeah,
okay. Forums or instant messaging or chatting. Someone can actually spam by repeating the same message over and over and over again. It's not effective. Okay, let me just say that it's not effective. So as long as we stay on topic, I think we can avoid most of those issues. So I'm just going to click here and say that I understand this particular policy. First day of class or orientation, since you are here, okay, I'm talking to you who are actually here, not the people who are listening to the video or watching the video afterwards. You don't have a single thing to worry about because the roll sheet will clearly indicate that you are here today. But people who missed today, I will be dropping those. Okay, they can try to add back to the class later, but they will be dropped today. This is also important. Accommodations. ARC offers equal access to programs, services, and facilities so that students with disabilities have the opportunity to participate fully in campus activities. So this basically means if anyone has any type of disabilities and require special services, they need to let me know, and also need to let DSPS, Disabled Student Program and Services, know so that they can get the resources that is needed. Okay. People who need DSPS services do not have to stay that during class. Okay, we can do it after class by email and so on, but the resources won't be available until I or the college is made known about the requirements. Excessive absences. Absences are considered excessive if it is 6% or more. This is a class where we meet for 16 weeks. So if someone is missing lectures for one whole week, what is the percentage of that? What is 1 divided by 16? Is it more than 6% or less than 6%?
That's less than 6%.
It's more than 6%. 6 times 16 is 96. So if you divide 100 by 16, it is 6 point something percent. So what this really means is if someone is missing 2 classes, it's considered excessive. Okay? Now those two, there are certain things I have to excuse, like sickness of the student himself or herself, but these are basically unexcused absences. In a face-to-face class, attendance is tracked by roll sheets, and the instructor may pass, I'm passing a roll sheet like today around the classroom, so I'll be using that. Okay, basically what I would be doing is, for people who did not sign in, okay, I'm gonna put a mark, on the roster, and if it reaches like 2 or 3, those people will be dropped from this class. So there's a scenario here. Okay, so in the 54-hour full semester class that has 80-minute class meetings, which is not what we have. We have only 75 minutes in this class. Each class meeting is 80 divided by this number, which is 2.47%. So that means that the third class is going to be excessive. The third absence is going to be excessive. So are there any questions about all this stuff? Now, what about online classes or hybrid classes? If someone did not sign in for up to a week, that is also going to be considered excessive. Now, trust me, we will have homework on a weekly basis. It will be pretty difficult for someone who is actually in the class not to sign in every week. Okay. So I'm going to click, I understand the excessive absence policy here. There are several things that has to be excused. Okay, one is due to health reasons, but that has to be accompanied by a doctor's note, indicating that the student could not go to class because of sickness. What if you don't have, health insurance? The on-campus health services can also give you a slip of paper indicating that you are sick and cannot go to class. But that's only if you're on campus. If you're not on campus at the time, then you have to think of something else, as documentation that you were sick. Other types of duties, like military duty or jury duty, are also excused. Okay. There's no late policy. The late policy is no late work is admitted. So that means you have to turn in your homework assignments on time, and that is basically according to the clock of Moodle of the server. Okay, if it's off by the minute, it's not going to accept it.
On the excused absences thing, what about funerals and things like that? Funerals?
Funerals is not a part of the excuses. It's not an excused absence. So if you do have a funeral to go to, you'll be using up one of the unexcused absences.
Okay.
You are allowed up to 2 unexcused absences. The third one is going to be excessive. Okay. Academic dishonesty, it is defined in this paragraph here. I'm just going to highlight the paragraph. It occurs when the student either the student doing things that ends up being classified like this, or helping another student to do something that ends up being classified as this. Attempt to show possession of a level of competency, knowledge, or skill that the student or some other student do not possess. So that means, okay, what does that mean?
Misrepresentation of your own skill.
Sorry?
Misrepresentation of your own skill.
Yeah, basically misrepresentation. In other words, if I just look at the assessment activity itself, I would be thinking, oh, this student is competent or has a really good knowledge of the subject matter. On the other hand, if I talk to the student, or if I give the student a different test, that student may not be doing even close to what the first assessment is suggesting. Okay? All right. So this description is very general. It doesn't really care about how it is done. It simply talks about the effect of the act of what is being done. So the other way to talk about this is to talk about the positive side of it, which is academic integrity. A more positive way to look at this is to define integrity instead of dishonesty. Integrity means the grade of a particular assessment of a particular student reflects the academic performance of the student and only of the student who turned in the assessment and no one else. At the time of the assessment, cannot be before or after the assessment. Now this one is kind of interesting because why is time actually important here? There are people who take a class like a second time and they try to turn in homework assignment from the first time they attended the class. Well, sometimes it works because I may not have changed the homework assignment. Other times it does not work because I have changed the homework assignment. So that's why, at the time of the assessment is actually important as well. Following all the rules of the assessment as well as general rules already discussed in the syllabus unless otherwise stated. And use only the resources that are permitted by the instructor. Now this part is kind of important as well. I can tell you a story that kind of that would help explain why this part is important. Years ago, I used to teach CISC310. Does anyone know what is CISC310?
Assembly language? Assembly?
No, that's CISP310. CISC310 is a core 310 class. The title is misleading. It's called Introduction to Computer Science, but that's not what it is. It's a very general purpose class. They talk about terms in general in computer science and information technology. So I'm going to fast forward to the final exam of this class. I was using a textbook at the time, and the textbook comes with question banks. So I was thinking, well, I'll just go ahead and use some of the questions from the question bank. And I'm not a believer in people having to memorize all the terms and everything that can be easily looked up on the internet. So I said, well, you guys can use the internet to look up the terms. Okay, if you cannot remember what is the full name of HTTP, go ahead and Google it. Okay, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Okay, it's no big deal. I don't really think that people need to remember all the terms. But somebody decided, I'm not going to look up the terms. I will select the question, right-click, and then search for the text of the entire question. And they found the key. Somebody uploaded the key to that question bank onto the internet. So from there on, that person was just right-clicking on each question, looking up the internet, and find the proper answer. So that would definitely not fall into integrity. Okay, it's kind of great because I did allow people to use the internet, but if you look at the score of that particular student, does it reflect how well that student understands the terms and how to apply the knowledge of that class? The answer would be a no. Okay, so that would fall into the category of quote-unquote dishonesty, even though it may not be intending as such, but the score of the student would not be reflecting the academic performance of that particular student. If you would like to use a resource that is not permitted explicitly by the instructor, just ask before using it. Even though it seems to make sense, just go ahead and ask. Okay, I would just probably be saying, yeah, sure, you can go ahead. Okay. Alright, clicking on this one. Do you see why this is not a syllabus anymore? This is not an outline anymore. Student rights and responsibilities. This is a hyperlink to a document. It's actually a PDF, which is a guide to student rights and responsibilities. How many people have actually read this one? No. Okay, you have? Okay, very good. Do you find it useful?
I mean, I don't remember all of it, but sure.
But do you remember what it mentions? What kind of information is in it?
Like, basically, like I don't remember. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not very useful to me. I know my rights as like a citizen, so.
Well, it covers both. Okay, it basically talks about what you're expected to do as a student on campus. Okay. But it also tells you what if you are wrongfully accused. Okay, what if an instructor said that you did something but you did not do it, and as a result you get a lower grade or something that is bad to you. Well, it talks about how you can file a grievance. Okay, who to contact, what is the procedure, so that you can actually protect yourself and have your rights protected as a student. So this is a really useful document. It is intended for students. It's not intended for, instructors or administration. So if you have not read it before, I would strongly recommend you to take a quick look at it. You don't have to memorize everything. Just know the main points of this document. So all I want you to do is to know where to find the Guide to Student Rights and Responsibilities, and understand that it is my responsibility to read the document, and so on. Classroom behavior, okay, basic stuff. I'm just gonna skip a little bit here. The key is I don't want any disruptive behavior in the classroom. That's basically the bottom line. Okay, if you do not have enough sleep, and you kind of doze off in the classroom, do I mind that? No, as long as you don't snore. Okay, if you don't snore, that's okay. I have to tell you a funny story too. When I was taking classes as a student, and I would be tired sometimes because there's a lot of stuff to do. I have a side job, and there was one time I was in a classroom, and it's not a classroom like this one. It's more like a rave hall. It's an auditorium, so it's tiered, and I fell asleep. Okay, which normally is not a big problem, except that time, something startled me. So I woke up, but instead of just waking up and go like, oh, okay, I guess I missed 20 minutes of the lecture, I did this. And that flinged, my pens, paper, notebook, and all my stuff all around. Remember, this is an auditorium, and I was sitting up pretty high, so my stuff got launched, probably a few rows down. It basically rained down, a few rows, in front of me. It was disruptive, but it was not intentional, okay? I really did not intend to disrupt the class, but it was definitely embarrassing and disruptive at the same time. So that's just my funny story. It actually happened. Okay, so in the classroom, chatting would not be a good thing to do. If you have a question, go ahead and ask me instead of the person next to you. And if you just want to borrow something or stationery, piece of paper or something from the next student, that's okay. But if it's a habitual kind of chatting, that's not good for you or the student sitting next to you or all the students around you. Interrupting, if you have a question, just raise your hand, and I promise that I will address every single question in this class. As long as you keep your hand up, I will remember and call on you and ask, okay, go ahead, if you have a point to make or if you have a question to ask. Mobile devices. Turn off or silence your mobile devices. If you need to talk, go ahead and go outside of the classroom. Okay, that's okay. I understand sometimes you have important phone calls and you have to answer the call. That's okay. Just don't talk in the classroom. Do not eat or drink in this classroom. This is a policy for all classrooms. Come to class on time. Walking in late distracts the class, especially when the door closes with a bang. You will be surprised how well my microphone can record the door closing. I was surprised, okay? Because when I'm teaching a class and the door closes, I would hardly notice something like that. But when I'm watching a video and the door slams closed, it makes a really loud pop sound, in the recording. If there is a class, this really does not apply to us because there are no classes before us. So I'm going to skip that one. Questions are welcome as long as they are related to class material and they are asked in an orderly fashion. In other words, I cannot listen to people talking at the same time. So I just want to make sure that we all take turn to ask questions, and so I can answer the questions in that order. Okay, I'm going to click yes here, and I understand how I'm expected to behave in class. This one is really kind of general stuff. Okay, most of you are not going to be too surprised. Most lectures are recorded unless there's a technical difficulty or operator error. And it is not uncommon for me to type the entire command to do the screen recording. And I usually wait for the actual time to start the class and then I forget to press the enter key. It has happened a few times, okay? Fortunately, most of the time, at least one student in the class will be kind of anxious and ask, Tech, did you press the enter key? And I would double check and go like, oh, surely I did not press the enter key. So that's usually within minutes of the beginning of the class and not much is lost. But there are cases where I lost the entire class because nobody reminded me to check, did you press the enter key? So it might be helpful, for you guys to help remind me, just say, check, did you start the recorder? Okay, that would be sufficient. I can just go ahead and check. Try to read ahead of my lectures, and I will give you reading assignments, okay? And that's important because by the time we get to the next lecture, I'll be assuming that you have read the assigned reading, okay? So that is really important to keep up with your assigned reading. When you go to Moodle, the links are usually sequential, so I'll just go from one link to the next, to the next, to the next. So if you run out of material of the current topic to read, just move on to the next one, because I typically just go in the sequential order. How to succeed in the class? There's no guarantee, okay? Just little suggestions. This class is not graded on a curve. How many people know what is being graded on a curve? Okay, what does that mean?
If the digit is at least 5 or greater, it would be rounded off to the next number. Right? So if you got like a 79.5, it'd be like the 80.
That's maybe it's related to graded on the curve. Go ahead.
You sort all the students' grades on a statistical bell curve and then have cutoffs for the various letter
That's
grades.
exactly it. Okay, let me just kind of repeat that to the whole class. Grading on a curve simply means, there's always a fixed percentage of people getting A's and B's. Okay? In other words, certain professors believe that with every single class, only about, I'm just making it up this number here, but for different professors, the number is different. So some professors may believe only 5% of all students, should be qualified to get an A. Okay? So what if you have a whole class of really, really smart and dedicated students? Same thing. Only the top 5% can get an A. What about B's? Well, I'm just pulling a number here. The next 15% of students can get a B. And so on. So that's basically grading on a curve. You have a quota of how many people can get a particular grade. And usually that only applies to A and B's. C, D, and F's, are usually not on the curve. I don't do it in this class or any of my classes. So that means, the threshold to get to a particular grade is just absolute. Okay, thorough understanding. Okay, this is how to succeed in the class. So what you want to do is to kind of go through this part here. This is kind of important. The most important part of any computer science, math, or science classes is a thorough understanding of the material. The word understand must be well, understood first. What does it mean to understand something? I mean, I know this is really a kind of easy question, but what does it mean if I say that I understand A, B, and C? Okay, what does that mean? Does it mean that I can just recall A, B, and C? What does it mean when you understand something? Go ahead.
Understand the underlying principles and construct the reasoning with it.
You can apply it, exactly. Okay, when you understand something, you can apply it. Okay, that really is the key. So I'm just going to read this part here a little bit. To understand is not just to read the material over and over again. This is what I saw. Okay, there's a reason why I put it here. It's not because I ran out of time. I ran out of material. I just wanted to kind of fluff up my syllabus and put all this stuff here. This is because I have seen people taking computer science programming classes, and they think understanding or preparing for exam is just reading the material over and over again. That does not help. I can tell you right away, my exams, the 2 midterms and the final exam, they're all open book, open notes. You can bring in anything you want to as long as it is printed and on paper or handwritten. So memorization is not required. You don't have to memorize anything. As long as you know what you want to bring in and prepare ahead of time, there's no need to memorize anything. So that throws out the first one, okay? Reading something over and over again is not understanding. Which also brings us to the second one, okay? Memorizing something is not to understand something. Understanding something is also not to watch a lecture recording over and over again, because I have seen that as well. Okay? That doesn't help. So what exactly is understanding? Okay? Well, this is a long thing here. I'm just jumping all the way to the last paragraph here. When the concept can be applied correctly, it is one step closer to being understood. Because you're incorporating the knowledge into your mind and be able to actually apply what you have learned. Do you guys have anything to share about the whole concept of understanding? I mean, especially for those of you who have taken math classes or science classes where understanding the material is very important. No questions? Well, since you don't have a question, I'm going to give you another story. This is back when I was in high school. See, I'm going backward in time here. When I was in high school, we were preparing for the exit examination, in high school. My buddies, in addition to doing the exercises of the physics textbook, which is about yay thick, they bought additional textbooks and exercise books, and they finished all of the exercises. Okay, they memorized all the equations. Okay, if you look at Newtonian physics, they memorize all the variations of all the equations. I barely finished the questions in the textbook itself, and I could not remember a single, well, I can remember the basic stuff, okay? I can remember the definition of velocity, acceleration, and so on and so forth. But if you ask me, okay, there's an object of this height, and gravity is this kind of acceleration, how long would it take to hit the floor? I will have to re-derive the equations. I cannot remember the general equation to solve that particular question. Do you think I understood the concepts? If I have to re-derive every single equation from the most basic equations, do you think that's understanding a good understanding of the material? That's basically what it is. All my friends, okay, they have much better memory than I do, so they try to memorize every single form, variation of the equations. And sometimes they get tricked, because if you are given certain terms of certain units, there can be multiple equations that can give you an answer of the desired unit. If you don't understand the material, you would not know which equation to use. But if you understand the material and you derive the equation on the fly, that's not going to trick you. So that's basically okay, this is just a little fun thing for you to do. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a sentence that makes absolutely no sense. Okay, to understand the sentence, okay, so Bojadi becomes mollified when it is null-faced. Okay, so what does it mean? The sentence. You have no idea. I mean, I don't have any idea. I just made up those words, right? So if you can memorize this entire sentence and basically memorize and regurgitate the entire sentence, does that mean you understand the sentence? No, because those words have no meanings. It is impossible to understand this. To understand the sentence, there's the what, right? Okay, what exactly is, what is this? What is that? And what is that? Okay. There's the how, okay? How does a Bojadi get null-faced? Okay. And also the why, okay? Sometimes there's the why as well. So you have to kind of think deeper than the sentence itself in order to understand the actual meaning of a sentence. And that really applies to all classes, not just computer science, okay? When you read a sentence from a textbook, it's not just the words, it's how the words connect to each other that is important. If I don't understand a particular concept, especially in a class like this, what do I do? Now, there's a reason why I write down the first sentence that says, do not move on. Stop the instructor and ask questions. Why do you think I wrote that down all by itself in its own paragraph and make it italic?
It's important.
Sorry?
It's important.
It's important, and I have seen a lot of people just doing exactly the opposite of what I suggested. In other words, a lot of people just read the sentences, and even though they know that they did not really fully understand the concept, they just go ahead and move on anyway. That won't work in a programming class, not at all. So when you think, okay, I'm not really quite understanding that sentence, you make sure that you stop me, okay? Make sure that it's clarified before we move on. I'm not going to bore you with the rest of this, but it's really kind of important too. Problem solving. After concepts are understood, the ultimate test is to apply these concepts to solve problems. Okay? If I give you a particular scenario in class and work through it, I gave you the solution, I showed you how to solve the problem. And in the exam, I give you exactly the same problem to solve. Would that be testing your understanding? Or would I be just testing your memory? That's memorization, right? Okay? I've seen Tag solve this problem XYZ. This is his solution. This is how he solved the problem. I see exactly the same question in the exam. I'm just going to use the same solution, reapply the same solution, and it will work. So that's not really testing whether you understand the concepts or not. So what this is already implying is, in the exam, you will see questions that are related to the topics that we have talked about, but I might give you a problem where you have to combine the concepts in different ways to solve it. It's like Legos, right? Lego blocks, they all connect in a certain way, but I cannot possibly show you all the possibilities. If I have, let's say, 50 pieces of Legos, okay? How many ways can I combine those 50 pieces of Legos? A lot, right? Okay? So do you think I will enumerate and show you all the possibilities to connect those 50 pieces? Or just show you the principles of, okay, this piece is kind of important because it can rotate. This piece is kind of important because you can plug it in top and also on the side. I'll be emphasizing on the characteristics of each piece, but I won't be able to show you, all the possibilities of connecting those pieces. Same way with this class and how I test, how I will ask questions in this test, in tests of this class. So this is kind of long. I'm not going to expand on it in the class, but you should read about it. Independence. I expect 100% absolute independence. There's no value in class. Okay, if I expect 100% independence, there won't be any value because you're better off just reading the material. If I expect 100% independence, there's no reason for me to be here if you can learn this material all by yourself, completely independently. Okay. So when I refer to independence, I'm referring to the completion of the assessment activities, not the learning part, but the assessment activities, which is the problem-solving part. The honesty policy already covers the academic honesty part of independence, but that is only to maintain the integrity of the class and the college. Doing work independently, in the end, is going to help you. Why do you think that is the case? What is the importance of independence when it comes to doing your own work, solving the problems on your own?
You have to figure out how to make the solution something you can recreate whenever you need it.
Okay, that's exactly it. Go ahead.
Gains understanding.
You are the one who's gaining the understanding, right? So who is going to be the beneficiary of all that stuff, all that hard work? Are you helping the next person when you're independent? No, you're only helping yourself, right? How many people plan to get a job at some point? Okay, I see about maybe 20% of this class planning to get a job, which is not very encouraging because I need every single one of you to work so that I can have my social security. Okay, when you are at work, okay, what do you think your employer is going to expect out of you? Being able to work by yourself, okay? So this is actually important stuff. Now, what if you're stuck with an assignment? Well, if you don't get stuck with homework assignments in this class, I am not doing my job. Okay, I know this is getting recorded. You can replay this section to the dean. Okay, if you don't get stuck at least once with your homework assignments, I'm not doing my job right. Because what does it mean when you're stuck? You're seeing some challenge, okay? And how do you get past that challenge? You work harder, right? Okay, it's kind of like, with athletes, okay? When an athlete is training, okay? Like, let's say, Lance Armstrong, okay, the cyclist. When he's training, how does he train? I'll give you two options. Riding his bike coasting downhill or riding his bike going uphill. Which one is going to be actual training? Downhill. Yep. Well, let's take that out of the equation first. Okay. Well, even though he cheated, I have to say that his body is different from most people. I think given the same drugs to other people, they would not be able to do what he did. But nonetheless, okay, the focus here is, what is training? Okay, is training just coasting downhill because it's comfortable, it's easy, and you don't have to put any effort into it? Or is training going uphill when you actually have to work against gravity so that your muscle will actually develop? I think you know the answer already. Okay, we are not going to bike in this class. Okay, instead we are trying to solve problems. Okay, we are writing programs. And the challenge is, okay, this program is not working the way I think it should be working. Why is it not doing it? There are several things that are really important. When you are stuck, then you have to remind yourself, do I understand the concepts? Because a lot of times when I'm stuck, that's the question that I'll be asking myself. Were my assumptions correct? And I'll be questioning those assumptions. Okay? Second thing is perseverance. Okay, just don't give up too quickly. Okay, if you're really, really stuck, go ahead and ask me. Okay, that's okay, but don't give up too early. And also be flexible and have an open mindset. Okay, repetitively doing the same thing over and over again is not going to solve the problem. Okay, so you have to try something else. Think out of, quote unquote, think out of the box. Okay. Just do something, think of, okay, what have I not considered that can possibly explain this? Studying before class is going to be helpful. This is not before an exam, just before class. Just go ahead and read the material before class, and that will help you understand the material as I go over that material. Grading standard, this is going to be fun. Okay, the ABCDF GPA systems, this is nothing new, right? The GPA of an A is 4.0, the GPA of a B is 3.0, and so on. So what I will do in this class is I'll give you guys scores according to this number. So the bottom line is, I'm going to skip a little bit forward and I'll go back a little bit. So in this class, this part here, I assign points so that an F centers around a 0, a D would center around 25%, a C centers around 50%, a B centers around 75%, and an A centers around 100%. So the bottom line, if you really want to just get the sentence out of this one, is this sentence here. The exact boundaries of D, C, B, and A are 12.5, 37.5, 62.5, and 87.5%. Okay, I cannot even read the number right. Okay, so that means if you, at the end of a semester, if you get 60%, what grade are you getting out of that class? What ledger grade are you getting?
C.
A C, exactly. What about 70%? That would be a B, right? And 90% would be an A. Okay. What is the boundary score to fail this class with a D?
37.5%.
37.49999%. Because as soon as somebody gets to 37.5%, that's a C. You can move on to the next class. All right? And I'm going to say it now. I will say it again at the end of the semester. Out of the 5 grades, out of the 5 grades, which one is the worst to get? From a long-term perspective, yes, you are absolutely right. A C is the worst possible grade for someone to get as a student in the long run. Okay, why is that?
Because if you retake it, it's kind of, yeah, I don't know. Like you get 3 shots to retake a class, so if you get a D or an F the first time, it doesn't really matter. When if you get a C, it just means that you kind of like put more work in.
Okay, you're looking at a very pragmatic level. Okay, you're looking from the GPA standpoint. If you get a C, it's not really a good score. Kind of help lower your actual overall GPA. But if you get a D or an F, you get to take the class again. So there's a chance that you can get a higher score and actually get a good grade out of the class the second time you take the class. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that with the D or the F, but if you have a C, then you just go on, possibly not quite having a great understanding
I
of
think
it.
you can retake it even if you have a C.
I don't
Right.
think that is the case. I can be wrong. Okay, I'm not 100% sure about the policies.
And so as we take the class, yeah.
You can? You
Can't,
can?
no.
You cannot, right? Yep. Go ahead.
I'll say if you get a C on all 3 of the classes, then you just have a really good foundation. And if you get a B or an A, so let's say if you get a job and you only have like an average level,
Exactly.
it's going to be harder for you to get a job than if you excel in that A.
Now, with this class, it doesn't have to wait until you get a job. Okay. By the time, if someone's getting a C out of this class, by the time that person gets to CISP 400 or 430, it will show that person is going to struggle because the fundamental concepts are not understood. Okay. Now, there's no question about, okay, now I'm going to go back and talk about what is the meaning of A, B, C, D, F, and there are like several versions of this explanation. So I'll start with the first one, which is the naming. This is the actual name of the respective grades. An A is quote-unquote excellent. A B is quote-unquote good. A C is supposed to be satisfactory/fair. D is a low pass. So it is actually a passing grade, except in most cases we do not let people get past a particular class with a D. And F is the only failing grade. Okay, and F is the only failing grade. So let's turn around and see what does it mean in the context of a product. Okay, so I'm just kind of focusing on this one here. So you buy a hard drive from Fry's, and you want to assign a grade to the hard drive. And F is what you would assign when you install the hard drive. It does not work at all, and even kill other components of your computer. It causes a small fire inside your computer. It took out all the other components. I would say that's probably a deserving F, right? What about a D? A D means you install the drive, it is noisy, it vibrates like there's no tomorrow, and it fails way before the MTBF. What is MTBF? Go ahead. Of the hard drive. The hard drives are rated in MTBF in hours. So what is the term MTBF? Yep. Mean time between or before failure. Okay? So the longer, the better. So if you buy a drive that is supposed to have 100,000 hours of mean time between failure, You installed it, it works for 1 week, and then it failed. That's a D, okay? At least it didn't take out your motherboard and your power supply, right? But it's not really a passing grade. A C is you install the hard drive and it has the average amount of noise and vibration, and it is about average when it fails. Okay, so if you installed 100 drives, the average of the mean time between the average of all the failure time matches the mean time between failure. So it does work the way it's supposed to, but it doesn't do anything better than what it is supposed to. A B means you install the drive and it is quiet and it has less vibration than you expect out of a normal hard drive. And the average of all the installed drive fail after the rated Mtbf. In other words, it's better than expected. And you assign an A to a drive when you installed it and you are surprised by how quiet and stable the drive is. There's no vibration whatsoever, it's just super quiet. And out of 100 drives that you install, not a single one would fail before the Mtbf. So that is excellent. Okay, it exceeds expectation. That's basically what it is. So I'm not going to bore you with the next one because it's just another way to explain the same thing. Okay, but this one is This is related to class grading. So I'm just going to click here and move on to assessment activities. 20% of your grade will come from homework assignments. So typically you have 1 week to work on a homework assignment. These are the things that you take home to do, but you can do it during the lab time here as well. As far as exams are concerned, there are 3. The first exam is going to take up 20% of your final grade. It is usually scheduled at about 1/3 of this class. The second exam is another 20%. It is at about 2/3 of this class. And then we have 40% in the final exam, and you know when it's going to be. Okay, that's just the final exam. Yep, go ahead.
What format are the exams?
It depends on how many people we have, by the time we get to the first exam. If the lab can accommodate all students, in other words, all students have a computer in front of them, I will consider an exam that is conducted online. Not online from the perspective of you can do it at home. We'll still be doing it face-to-face, but online in the sense of being electronic. If not everybody can have access to a computer, by the time we get to the first exam, then it's going to be on paper. Okay. And you might have noticed the way I assigned the percentages. Someone can turn in no homework assignments, flunk the first exam as well as the second exam, and ace the final exam, and that 40% is still enough to get a C and walk out of this class with a passing grade. Has anyone noticed that? But this is not a challenge, okay? I'm not challenging anyone to try that. And this is just a suggested schedule of topics. Obviously, we are a little bit behind schedule right now because I spent an hour and 10 minutes just on the syllabus. So this is a good time to go back to the main web page here. So the first thing you want to do is to finish the interactive teacher learning agreement. It's not a EULA, it's a TLA. Yep.
I just noticed from the grading, so we have no major projects or anything, or without, because you only had 20% for assignments, so there's no
Correct.
major final project or anything like that.
No, nothing too major. Okay, the difficulty level of the homework assignments as well as the point values will go up as we go through the semester. But they're not. Each one is not very difficult compared to the previous one, so it's incremental.
But there's no project with 10% or greater or anything like that.
Nah, nothing like that. So this is the first thing you want to do. Prerequisite is not something that you have to do, it's something that I have to do. In other words, I'll be checking your prerequisite and check off and make sure that everybody in this class has met the prerequisites. Yep.
If you took Cis P300 or 300 and those trios, you'll be able to look that up on your
Yes. If the only exception is if you had taken CISP301 from Sac City, it's not going to show up.
Okay.
Yeah, so for those people, I will need to contact those people and say, well, it doesn't show, so what class have you taken to get into this class? So anyway, prerequisite is not something that you have to do, it's something that I have to do. And there's that's the prerequisite check. So your reading assignment, okay, this is your reading assignment, is to get to getting started. And I'm gonna, I can't do it just yet because I have not completed my activity. So I'm just gonna cheat and switch to my instructor screen here. Go. Okay, so assuming that you are done with your syllabus, you can get to getting started. Getting started has some reading material, so definitely go through the reading material. What you see is gray here is not going to be visible to you. That's okay, you know, they're gray because I have obsoleted that material. But what is not gray, which is how am I going to do homework in this class, and how is a program written and how does it run, that is your reading assignment. It's just reading, okay? When you see this icon here, which is just a piece of paper, it means it's just an HTML document. Topic forum is a forum, but it's specifically for material for this particular topic. So if you have any questions about how to do homework in this class, post a question there and I'll get to it. And then this is not a quiz, okay? It's called Low-Level Mechanisms and Representation. It is not really a quiz because you are allowed infinite number of attempts, okay, as long as it's within a certain time frame and it's multiple choice. So you just, you basically read something, it will ask you a question, and then you have to answer the question, you move on to the next page. It's just, another form of reading material, but it's slightly more interactive. The actual homework assignments would be the 2 lab activities. The first one is to set up a Linux environment for homework assignments, and then the second one is to write an actual program, very simple program, but I just want to make sure that you guys know how to use Linux, very simple commands, and how to write the most basic program in C++. Now I'm running out of time today, I cannot really explain these two, but you go ahead and read it, okay? When we meet on Wednesday, I would assume that you have read all of these material, and if you have any questions, I will answer those questions on Wednesday. Are there any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Are we going to be using a textbook?
We are not going to use a textbook, so there's no textbook to purchase. All of the material are already, on Moodle. So if you just kind of go through all the topics, that's basically the material for this class. C++ is a really well documented programming language. So there's a lot of resources, out there already. There's really no need to buy a textbook. Yep.
How much information from CISP300 do you have to know for this class?
That is a good question. The question is how much from CISP300 is needed for this class. You will have to know the basic concepts of all the control structures. Conditional statements, loops, the concept of subroutines, okay? What does it mean when you call a subroutine? What does it mean when you return from a subroutine? What are parameters? What are local variables? Okay? What is passing by value? What is passing by reference? Those are the concepts that I'm expecting you guys to have understood already. What is an array? How do you get through elements in an array? Yep, go ahead.
Well, will you have any sort of review thing to read on, or will we just have to remember the stuff we're
As we go through the constructs in C++, for those concepts, we'll basically be doing a conceptual review of the concept itself before I talk about the actual syntax.
Okay, yeah,
So
it's
there's
gonna
kind
be
of
different anyway, because we're in C++. So.
Yeah, so it's not really a formal review, but I will talk about those concepts, but not from scratch.
For sure. 'Cause
Okay.
I took mine 2 semesters ago, so it's not fresh in my head.
Okay.
Exactly. So.
Yep. Well, you can also check out my lectures from last semester.
Okay.
So none of this is new. This is all a repeating pattern. Okay. Any other questions? No questions? So I would, if I were you, I would go to, finish all the other stuff, and actually get to setting up a Linux environment. This one is a lot of steps, okay? It's just a lot of busy work, but you have to do it, okay? You have to do it to set up an environment for all the other homework assignments. And then the other one, Your World Rocks, this is actually a pretty simple homework assignment, okay? It's just a few steps that you have to follow. It basically helps you understand the steps of how to do the homework assignments in this class and how to turn them in. Okay, but the first one might take you quite a bit of time. This one might take you some time, so I would get a head start on that one. Yep.
Does the document include the IP address for Linux server here?
Sorry?
Does the setup include the address for the Linux server here?
Nope. You guys are going to run virtual machines.
Uh-oh.
You're going to run a virtual machine from a thumb drive or an external hard drive, so you can take that thumb drive, plug it into any computer, and just double click on the batch file, and it will start up the virtual machine.
How much space is that?
It's written here. I would say, if you have about 4.5 gigabytes of space left, that will be enough to set it up. But I would strongly suggest you guys to use an external hard drive instead of a thumb drive. What is the difference?
Flash memory versus disk.
Say again?
Flash memory versus disk.
Flash memory versus disk, but what is the bottom line that is important here? The amount of space is one, but since we only need about 5 gigabytes, it's not going to be that big of a difference. It's the speed, okay? Thumb drives, as much as manufacturers say, oh, this is a really fast thumb drive, they're measuring the burst speed of reading and writing, but not the sustained speed of reading and writing. When you run a virtual machine, you need sustained throughput and not burst throughput. And I have learned from experience, okay? I've learned from experience, most thumb drives are very slow when it comes to running a virtual machine, and you'll be much better off with an external hard drive. You don't need a big one, okay? A 0.5 terabyte one, 200 gigabyte is more than sufficient for this class. You can just grab one of the old 2.5 inch hard drives, just get a case for it for about $10 or so, and just reformat the whole thing to NTFS and use it for this class. So there's not a whole lot of investment involved here. But I would use an external hard drive instead of a thumb drive. All right. So I'm going to stop the recording and the lecture at this point. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me using the Moodle messaging, the forums, or come to my office, just ask me in person. Okay? I'll see you guys on Wednesday, unless you come to my office hour to visit me.
So are you going to be getting clinician numbers in class?
I will do that maybe on Wednesday. Yep. So the important part is you know how to get into Moodle, so you can start reading and actually doing the activities at the same time.
Are you doing any ads today?
I'm not doing any ad today because I can see here that we are not, that everybody, I only got 2 spots today.
Okay.
So those 2 people I can just email
Okay.
the permission number.
Okay. All right.
So keep coming.
Okay. Yes, I'm number 3.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just about to ask when you find out if you're actually enrolled or not.